All right. Clock strikes 8. So, hello everyone. Excited to see me? We're going to be talking about Riftbound today. And I would like to know how many of you have already played before? How many of you have just tried some mock-up games? And how many of you have just not really heard of it before? Although chat doesn't seem super active right now. You only play one time with your boyfriend? Nice. That's more than some have. Um, I hope I can educate you a bit more about the way Riftbound works. I should lower my camera just a little bit. There we go. All right. I guess we'll go right into it. So, Riftbound. It's a physical trading card game, as you might know. Um, this is the current table of contents. These are all the subjects we're going to cover. And I would like to ask to keep any like specific questions to the end because as you can see there is a frequently asked questions which is both about rules and might also be about products. You're more than welcome to ask me questions as soon as I've covered everything because maybe some questions of yours already get covered by what I will go through. But otherwise, obviously, feel free to just ask me questions. You can ask me like a one-off question or something to clarify something. But if you think it's going to be like relatively specific, please try to keep it for the end. So we'll start with the domains. Riftbound has 6 distinctive domains, each also their own color. In the top right, you'll see in red, top left, sorry, you'll see red. This is Fury. Um, they really like their main factors are aggression, conquering, recklessness, and damage. These are the cards that will hit the ground running, that will score quick points, and that will deal with a lot of their threats through brute force and through just damage instead of actually removing them. Um, on the opposite side, the opposite domain, uh, also called the enemy domain, is calm. Um, calm is all about defense, holding, moving, usually force movement of opponents, negations in the form of like counter spells or stuff like that. Um, it has a lot of reactions and it has a lot of tricks, mostly combat tricks, changing how strong your unit is in the middle of combat. Um, so it's a lot more sneaky than Fury is, and it's a lot more on the defensive about being patient, hence the name Calm. Then we'll go over to Mind, the blue one. Mind is very much, as it implies, about the mind. You plan ahead, you go big. You play a lot of hidden spells, a lot of tricks. You draw a lot of cards, and you care a lot about gears. If there are some words that don't quite make sense to you yet, don't worry, they will get covered. I promise you that. On the opposite spectrum of mind, we have body. Mind and body, again, opposing domains. Body really likes to ramp, get more resources. They like buffs, they like to win fights, and they have a lot of units that will enter ready or have the options to enter ready to instantly, get moving. Um, with body, you'll usually have the, you know, body. You have the big units, the ones that most likely will not go down in a fight easily. Then we have order, also the yellow color. They make a lot of tokens. They have a lot of kill effects. They have a lot of effects that happen on death, which is called death knell. They have a lot of sacrifice themes. They have a lot of symmetric effects. Symmetric effects mean effects that happen for both of you. One card, for example, is called Call the Weak. It says each player sacrifices a creature. That means both of you, or unit, I should say. Order likes order. They like symmetry. They like things being quote unquote fair. Um, and on the opposite side of order, you have chaos, the purple domain. This cares a lot about discarding cards, playing hidden cards, interact with their trash, and they have a lot of card selection. Um, Chaos is, as the name implies, very chaotic. It also has a lot of movement interactions, just like Calm. Um, and it's one of the very, very few that can actually interact with taking things from their trash. These are going to be the 6 domains in Riftbound. And now you're probably asking, what does this matter? And I'll get to that right now with the legends in Riftbound. Every legend has 2 domains that are inherent to them. Legends are basically the focal point of your decks. The they are the prime focus. They are the things you build your deck around. To start with a deck, you have to choose a legend. Now here we see 12 legends. This is only for set 1. These have been released in set 1. There's also a smaller product called Proving Grounds that has 4 more distinct legends with Lux, Annie, Master Yi, and Garen. And soon, set 2 will be released. I say soon, but I mean February. Set 2 will be released with 12 new legends. And 40 very quick-eyed, and probably very eagle-eyed people of us, you've noticed that there are 3 color pairs that are not on here. And those are Fury Calm, those are Body and Mind, and Order and Chaos. As I've alluded to before, these are enemy domains. They don't work well together. They cannot function that well together, philosophically at least. They have revealed information that for set 4, they are they very hint they have quite hinted that set 4 will have at least one enemy pairing, which will be very interesting with the card pool you get from that. But that's for another time. As I said, each legend, 2 domains. So as soon as you choose your legend, you are locked into those 2 domains and you cannot use cards from the other domains. So if you were like me and you like Darius a lot, when you pick Darius, you get Fury and Order. This means a lot of tokens, a lot of aggression, a lot of symmetrical effects. But maybe you are charmed by the brightness of Leona. You'd get Calm and Order, which means you cannot pick Fury cards, you cannot pick Chaos cards. You're locked into those colors. Now, the second thing that makes Legends so important, they have an effect, as you can see with the Volibear, the longest arrow pointing the most down. Their effects are kind of always active. There are 2 types of effects on Legends usually, and these are activated abilities, so abilities you have to use. They have a cost. Like Darius has the cost that you need to tap him or exhaust him, as it's called in this game. But it has a condition. Lee Sin has that you have to pay 1 energy and exhaust him to buff a friendly unit. But then there are also cards that will just happen if the conditions are met. For example, Jinx. At the start of your beginning phase, draw 1 if you have one or fewer cards in your hand. So at the start of your turn, if you have only 1 or less cards in your hand, you draw 1 extra. It will just happen at the beginning of your turn if the conditions are met. Same for Volibear. When you play a mighty unit, which is a unit that is really strong, that has 5 or more might, you immediately get the option to exhaust him. As it says here, you may exhaust me, and you get a rune. The specifics of these abilities will become clear to you later on as I start actually explaining how the game works. But I wanted to make clear that you know that these legends, these are basically what are going to define your decks. And this is the first choice you have to make. Legends also have a name. Each legend has a name. And this is also going to be important a little later. So, what does a deck consist of? I have pasted a picture of the current Misfortune deck that I'm making, or that I have made, as to show you how a deck usually looks like. So, in Riftbound, you have 1 legend, as I said. That's the first choice you make. My legend here is Misfortune, the bounty hunter. Then, a deck needs to have a chosen champion. These are cards that have champion unit on their card and share a name with your legend. So for my Misfortune deck, I need to have a Misfortune unit that and they share a name with my legend. So I need to have Misfortune and Misfortune. Then you choose 3 battlefields, and what they are will also become more clear later on. But these battlefields are basically the way you will score points in Riftbound, and they each also have their own effect. If you're really interested in this deck, you can scan the QR code, read all the cards up close. Because I'm not going to go into each and every card specifically, but I'm going to go into the general the generalism of the card types. What's important is that you know that you need 3 battlefields to have a functional deck. In a best of 1 matchup, in a 1v1, you will shuffle your battlefields and choose one randomly. And in a best of 3, you can choose your battlefields each time consciously, but you cannot use the same battlefield in the same match. So in a match, best of 3, you have to choose a different battlefield each game. Then you have 12 runes. These are shown here right underneath the Misfortune legend. I have 6 body runes and 6 chaos runes, and they they correlate with Misfortune's legend domains. Your rune deck is a separate deck. These are your resources, and they start separately from the rest of your deck. Then you have your 40 card main board. You can play up to a maximum of 3 cards of the same card. So 3 copies of the same card, as you can see. It tops out at 3. You can go lower, of course, but you cannot go higher than 3 of the same card. This 40 card main deck does include your chosen champion. A lot of people forget that because your chosen champion and your legends start outside of your deck at the beginning of the game. But basically, you will have 39 cards when you actually start a proper match. Um, and then Riftbound has the rule that you need to have either 0 or 8 cards sideboard, no in between. Now, into the nitty gritty of the cards. So we have 4 different card types. We have units, and as you can see, this Misfortune has champion unit. That's what I was referring to earlier. But all units, including champion units, act the same. If you're coming from Magic the Gathering, know that champion units don't work the same as legendary creatures. You can have multiple of the same ones on the board. There is no legendary rule in this game. Misfortune has a might. This is both how much damage she can do and how much damage she can take. It is both her damage and her life. Then you have the card name, Misfortune Captain, her text box, and this one is going to be the most interesting part. This is her cost. And there are 2 ways to pay for the cost, to pay for costs. You have the energy and you have power. Now, every card will have the energy symbol in the top left. Even gears, even spells. Also, if you're coming from Magic, we have specific spells. Not everything is a spell. You just have spells specifically. Anyway, so you have your energy and your power. As I said before, runes are your resources. You can tap a rune, turning it 90 degrees. That will give you 1 energy. So every rune is 1 energy. It does not matter what color you use. To pay for the power, you have to recycle a rune. This means putting a rune face down on the bottom of your rune deck. Recycling is a word in Riftbound that means putting it at the bottom of their respective decks. So to pay for, but you can recycle tapped or exhausted runes, which means for Misfortune you would only need 5 runes, as long as you put back one of the body runes. So you would go down for future resources. Misfortune also has Accelerate. It shows the symbol 1 and a colored symbol. That means to player with Accelerate, you'd have to tap 1 more rune and recycle another body rune. It's not recycle 1 body rune. You also have to tap 1 to get 1 more energy. So she becomes 6 energy to body, basically. Units always enter your base exhausted, always tapped. They cannot do anything on their first turn usually. Accelerate is one of the ways that have them enter ready. This means untapped, so not exhausted. Then they can move to battlefields. We'll get into the nitty-gritty of that in a little bit. But it's important to me that you know that units at first don't really do anything. Then we have gears. These are very similar to artifacts and magic. Gears work the same in their costs as units do. They also can only exist in base, so they always enter your base. They enter ready, and you can immediately use them. And then you have spells. Spells you can generally only do during your turn. Everything in Riftbound is on your turn when nothing is happening. When nothing's on the stack, or as they call it in Riftbound, the chain. So Mobilize, for example, is a regular spell. You can only do it during your turn when there's nothing going on. Then you have something like Ride the Wind. This is an action. Not only spells will have this, other things will have this well, like activated abilities of stuff, or um, some other cards will also have action. You can play these during your turn or in showdowns. This also includes enemy turns. Oh, that was not the intention. My apologies. Um, so actions can be during your turn or during your opponent's turn if it's in a showdown. You can also cast them in your turn during showdowns. Um, Showdowns is when anything happens at a battlefield, but again, we will get more into that in a little bit. And then there's cards like Gust that have reaction. These you can do during anyone's turn as long as it's actively reacting to something. It's not like in Magic. It's the card game I come from. It's the one I know most. Um, you cannot just, oh, in the end of your turn, I will do this. No, you have to be reacting to something, but you can cast this during either person's turn as long as it's responding to something. Or during your turn, you can just cast them whatever. That's fine. All right. So we've gone through the cards. Now, this is when we get into the rules of the game. Um, this is how a usual setup looks like. You will have your legend and your chosen champion. They will both start out the game outside of your deck. Your legend you can never play. It doesn't have any stats, it doesn't have any costs. It is just kind of a permanent ability that you will have access to. Your chosen champion, on the other hand, kind of counts as an extra card in your hand. Um, they will start in their chosen champion zone. You can play them when you have the resources for them. It's a little bit like Commander. But once they die, they just go to the trash, which is around here, like any normal card, and they don't go back here. Um, then you have your main deck. These are where your 39 cards are going to be. You will shuffle them at the beginning of the game, and then place them here as start up the game. You have your rune deck here. This will be separate from your main deck. This will also have a separate zone. Um, as I said, this is the trash. Usually you keep your runes separate so you don't cause any confusion. This is your base. This is where basically everything will get played to. And this is where some people like to put their battlefields, or at least indicate that they're in battlefields. But a lot of people also just put the battlefields in between the two players. That's what I do, and that's my preference. But this is the official setup that the Riftbound people, the makers of Riftbound Riot Games, have given. So this is the one I'm using just for clarity's sake. And then we have the turn phases. Um, so, to be fair, the zones and stuff are not like um, set down. They're not like hard rules. They just need to be different from each other so that they're easily recognizable. Apart from that, it doesn't really matter. They just can't really interfere and overlap with one another. Um, so, turn phases. How do you start a turn in Riftbound? Riftbound has the easy ABCD at the start of their turn. This stands for Awaken, Beginning, Channel, Draw. Awaken is when you ready everything, when you untap everything, when they can start doing their stuff. Beginning is beginning of turn effects, plus points for holding. Um, Beginning of turn effects like the Jinx that we saw. At the beginning of your turn, you draw an extra card if you have one or less cards. Points for holding. So When you have a unit that's still at a battlefield, you will get a point for holding. C is channel. This is when you channel 2 runes. D is draw. You draw a card, and that's the beginning of your turn. After that, you have a giant action phase where you can do whatever you want. As long as it's within the confines of the rules, of course. This action phase will not have any combat phases. It's just one big phase that will be broken up by little showdowns whenever you decide to enter one. As I've alluded to before, each player will play a battlefield. These battlefields are at the middle of the board. And these battlefields are crucial to the game. In Riftbound, you try to get to 8 points. That's how you win the game. You win the game through 2 ways. You can either conquer, which is when you take control of a battlefield by moving your units there. You move your unit by tapping them. This is called a move. Nothing can respond to it. There's no, oh, while you move, I want to do something. No. You move from your base to one of the battlefields, and that's it. That is one move. If your units anytime you move to a battlefield, you automatically start a showdown. If there are no enemy units there, it starts a showdown. It checks that your units are the only one left at that battlefield. Showdown ends, you get a point. That's called conquering. It's when you take control of a battlefield. If there are opposing units, then you start a combat showdown. It's when you basically pick up all your combined might, and you see which one is bigger. You both spread your might, your damage, wherever you want on the enemy units, as long as you assign lethal damage to each unit. So you cannot assign just under lethal damage to not have death triggers happen. You have to assign lethal damage when you can. And then after that combat, you have, if your units are the only one left, you conquer again and you get a point. Now, the a little bit trickier thing to do is holding. That's when you manage to untap, get to your beginning phase while a unit is still at a battlefield, and then you get a point for holding. Very important notes. 2 things. 1, you can only get a point from the same battlefield. You can only get a point from one battlefield per turn. From the same battlefield per turn. So at maximum, you can score 2 points from battlefields. Or for multiplayer purposes, I should technically say you can only score points as much as there are battlefields per turn. So if you conquer battlefield A and conquer battlefield B, you cannot then somehow move your units back and then go there again in the same turn and get more points. That doesn't work. You've already gotten your point for that battlefield, so you can't get points from the same battlefield in the same turn. Units also can't move from battlefield to battlefield. They need a special keyword for that called ganking. You can only move from base to battlefield and battlefield to base. What you can do is, if you control a battlefield, you can play units directly onto that battlefield. This helps to both reinforce for holding, but also if you've already held for your turn, you can play a unit there and then move your other unit back, the one that is ready. And that way you don't have to keep your unit at that battlefield when you maybe don't want to have it at a battlefield, and can keep another unit there without the hassle of first having to wait for it to untap and then and then capture the battlefield again. As I said, and as I've alluded to here, there is a winning point special rule. Because conquering is relatively easy in Riftbound, they have added a special rule. That is that if you are at 7, if you're trying to score the winning point, which can change, it doesn't always have to be 8, when you try to get the winning point through conquering, you need to have scored from both battlefields in that turn. This means that if you're at 7 points and you conquer battlefield A without having scored from battlefield B, instead of gaining an extra point, you draw a card. If you then manage to score from the other battlefield in the same turn, you're fine, you go to 8, you win the game, congrats! This rule only applies to conquering. If you are at 7 points and you manage to hold into your next turn, you go to 8 and you win the game, congrats, well done! If you were at 6 points, you start your turn, you hold at one battlefield, you get a point, you go to 7, and you conquer the other battlefield, you go to 8, because you've scored from both battlefields in the same turn. You don't need to control both battlefields. That is something that I see a lot of people get wrong. You don't have to have units at both battlefields to win. There are some units that like to play with the movement ability. So if you manage to conquer battlefield A with the unit, and I manage to move it back and move it to the other battlefield, you're fine. You can also go to 8 points if you manage to conquer both battlefields. And that is honestly the biggest rules of Riftbound. Now we're getting to how do you start the game? Might be important. I don't know. In an official game, the way you'd start is you place your legend, you place your chosen champion. These are the first things you show. Then you look at your battlefields, the 3 that you have. In a best of 1, as I said, in a 1v1 best of 1, you take one at random. But I'm gonna mostly focus on the best of 3. I will go over multiplayer formats and stuff as well. That will come later, and how battlefields work there. But so you both of you choose your battlefield. If you're faster than your opponent, probably just put it face down. And then once you've both chosen your battlefield, you reveal them. And then is when you determine the turn order. You can do this in any way you like. Rock, paper, scissors, throwing dice to get to the highest. Um, you determine the starting player. That player can choose who starts the game. This is important because Riftbound does actually have a rule to try and offset the first player wins that you have in a lot of other trading card games. The person who starts in Riftbound gets 2 runes from their rune deck, still draws a card for their first turn, but the person who goes last in turn order gets 3 runes at the start of their turn. This is only at the start of your turn, at the start of your first turn. After that, you always get 2 runes every channel phase. So it always goes up by 2, but on turn 2, player 1 will have 4, player 2 will have 5 runes. So there is a little bit of resource advantage for the second player, but there is still the tempo advantage of the first player. So as I said, you reveal the battlefield, so you can see the battlefields, you can see the champions and the legends, and that's when you decide the turn order. Then you get to the mulligan. What you do is you draw 4 cards, look at them, you can return up to 2 to the bottom of your deck, 2 that you don't like, and then you draw that many. Riftbound is a game where there's very little shuffling to try and keep the games going and slow down the amount of time spent on looking through your deck and shuffling them. And once both players have decided that they are good, that they've mulliganed, that's when you start the game, which will get you to the awaken, beginning, channel, draw, and then off to the races. Do we have any questions so far before I get into the formats? All right. Then for formats, we have the two-player modes, the 1v1s. You have what they call duel. That's the best of one format. In this format, you shuffle your battlefields, and you pick one at random. Then you have matches, which are the best of three. These are when you use your battlefield, you pick your battlefield every game, but you cannot reuse them. And then for more than two players, you have skirmish. This is a three-player free-for-all. So when you have three players, you choose a battlefield. You can choose yours. And the first player does not draw, and the player last in turn gets one extra rune. So the first player doesn't draw, the second player still gets 2 runes, the third player gets 3. Then you have War. This is a 4-player free-for-all. The player that starts gets their battlefield discarded. And apart from that, it's the same rules as Skirmish. In these formats, you also have to, by trying to win through conquering, you also have to have scored from all battlefields in that turn. So you still go to 8 points, but you still have to have gotten a point from every single battlefield that is on the board, which in both cases will be 3. So it's one more. And then you have the other one that a lot of people are very excited about, which is Magma Chamber. That is their name for 2v2s. In 2v2s, you actually go to 11 points. You and your partner cannot share any battlefield, so all 3 of your battlefields have to be distinct from each other, but not from your opponents. Those can be the same. Same for everywhere else. You and your opponent can have the same battlefields. But yes, so in Magma Chamber, you are 2v2, and you share turns, basically. You try to get to 11 points. You cannot have units from you and your teammate at the same battlefield. You have to be at different battlefields. This is also a game with 3 battlefields, not 4. And then there's 2 ways of sitting, like seat arrangement. You can have the round one where you just play according to clockwise, because you do have to pass between teams. So if player A from team 1 starts, player 2, player C from team 1 cannot be the next in turn. That will have to be player B then. So you can either sit clockwise, which means it's easier to remember the turn order, but it's harder to communicate with your teammate. Or you can sit in the 4-player way, as you can see here, and then you pass in a zigzag, basically, which is nicer to be able to communicate with your teammate, but it's a little bit harder to keep track of the turn order. Then, we're going to talk about accessibility. There is a website called Piltover Archive. This is a community-driven website. It is not made by a company. These are just volunteers that made this website themselves for the love of the game. On this website, you can find deck building, collection tracking, card gallery, deck libraries, tournament results, and proxies. What I mean by this is that you can build your own decks. Actually, I'm going to just show you. You can build your own decks. This is the website. These are my decks. These are things that I made myself. You can find the deck library. These are decks that other people have posted that are public. You can filter by legend. Um, and yeah, you can just flip through it. You can check by trending, new, most liked, most viewed. I will say most liked doesn't really mean anything right now because the ability to like a deck has been turned off since relatively early. Um, because of the amount of traffic it was getting, and it didn't work the way they wanted it to. So they've turned it off for a little while. They are planning to bring it back. You have the My Collection tab. This will show you all the cards that you have. It has a value tracker. It's just very nice in general. Then you have the card gallery. Here's where you can find every single card that is currently in the game, uh, including cards that have been revealed in Spirit Forged, like Yone, like Sivir, Aurelia, Vex. So yeah, these people work very hard to keep this updated, and it's really nice. Um, you even have a news page here. Um, as you can see, it's been a little while, about 2 months ago. They've been working more on the functionality of the website, which I don't mind too much. I get my news from other sources, mostly just the general community Discord. Uh, you have events. These are tournaments. So these are the official tournaments we've had so far. And in less than 2 weeks, there will be a regional in Houston, which will also be posted under official once it's done. You have unofficial tournaments. It will show the formats as well. And then you have others, which are like community driven tournaments. It is very nice to look at. You can check here, like you can see the deck that won, or you can click on the tournament itself and see all the decks that uh, got like high results because you can see there's 30 players, but there's only 4 because the top cut was probably 4 people. Um, so also has a tab for proxies. This might be very nice if you have access to a printer and want to try some cards out. Um, it has a lot of options like this. It's very nice. I like it a lot. I've used this to proxy my decks. Um, the one downside of this website is I've noticed that sometimes I don't know why it will lag out my entire PC. Sometimes it just has a moment where it's like, I'm gonna eat all of your RAM and just almost freezes my PC. Doesn't happen often, but regularly enough that I've made a complaint with the person who made it. Uh, Complained. I mentioned it to the person who made it in their Discord. That's kind of it. Then there's also TTS, Tabletop Simulator. Um, for the people that are familiar with tabletop that already have it, this is probably the most used one, at least before Riftbound was publicly available. The way you get it is you go to Community Hub, you type in Riftbound in the workshop, and then you look for the ones that are made by Willow. Those are the official ones for Riftbound. You can just download it and start up a game. Another thing that we use Piltover Archive for, actually, I should have left it open. When you have your decks, like here's my MF deck, you have ways to export it. I did generate as image for the slides a couple before. You have export as text, and you have copy TTS code. And those are going to be the most important ones. Also, it has export registrations sheet. I'm not going to do that right now. And it has print proxies, which is very handy. The export TTS, the copy TTS code, that's going to be important for us. I will show you how to work it. You open TTS. Then you create, create server. Then workshop Riftbound basic table is what I have. I load it. And then you get this. It has both the 4-player table, so multiplayer, and the 1v1 table. You have some some decks ready to go. These are the TFT trial decks, the TFT Macau trial decks. These are before the game was released. These are like the beginning of the beginner decks. Not because they're so easy, but because this is before it even released here. This was just used to gain interest for people. These are the champion decks. These are the current starter decks that they have readily available for purchase right now. And these are the proving grounds decks. These are the decks that I mentioned that they have pre-made, where Annie, Master Yi, Lux, and Garen are in. So you can just click on them and you will immediately get that deck. I copy the TTS code, which means I can paste it here, import deck. It will be a little slow at the beginning, but here we are. You can press the F button to flip cards. So this is my Misfortune Legend. This is my Misfortune Chosen Champion. These are my battlefields. These are my runes. Search. These are my runes. You can press R on them to shuffle them. And this is my main deck. I will the top 8 cards of your main deck, if you added a sideboard, are your sideboard. So I will now press the number 8 while I hover over my deck to draw 8. These are my sideboard. So I will G group them, move them, flip them, and I'll just put them here. Everyone has their own place for putting them. Then you press R on your deck to shuffle it. And as I said before, you reveal your legend, you reveal your chosen champion, then you choose your battlefield. I want to start with this one. Your opponent should also be choosing a battlefield. Then you flip that battlefield. There we go. It has chip. You reveal that battlefield, then you do the mulligan, so you draw 4 cards. I want to put this on the bottom, and the rest I'll keep. So to recycle cards, they have a button here, so I can just recycle. And then when I'm ready to start my turn, I can press this one to ready, which means it channels 2 runes for me and it draws me a card. It cannot really differentiate who starts and who goes second, so for that you would have to draw a card yourself if you're going second for your extra rune. Then you can press E to turn cards, Q to turn them the other way, and you can press on the runes here to recycle them, put them at the bottom. Now, points is just left click, right click. And if your units go up in might, you can press the plus button. And if they go down in might, you can press the minus button. But let's say I have this at a battlefield, doesn't really matter. When I press ready, it untaps everything, it starts my turn, it draws me a card, everything is fine. This is where dead cards go, the trash. And yeah, you can just play around with this. Right click is to see all these options. I don't think I need to show you much more. All right, when you're trying to start a game and you want to randomly determine who starts, you press this button. I'm the only player here, so it's gonna choose me every time. Then I can click to end the turn. Then I basically have passed the turn. Um, uh, so that's that. That's TTS. Uh, yes, I do want to quit. All right. So that's TTS. Then we also have TCGA or TCG Arena. This is a website that you can just look up. If you look up TCG Arena, it's right here for me. When you go to games, you click Riftbound. Then you go to decks. Here you'll see I've made a couple. Uh, to make a new deck, you click here, export as text, copy to clipboard, and you just create a deck. I'll do testing. You choose what format you want, so classic or multiplayer. Create deck, import, paste, import and add, and then it automatically adds them. Um, you can see here, they're all here. I have my sideboard. It even shows you what the average cost is, turn 1 spells because they have 1 energy. You can also just go through all the cards yourself, it doesn't matter. Then you press save, and that's it. Now, you go to play, and you have 2 options. You can go for public lobbies. You can either find public lobbies, like this is one of them. Then you can also host your own lobby. This is by opening it like this. You can add a password if you want, a description if you want. If you want to play specifically with friends, you can use Direct Connect. You have your TCG Arena ID here. Copy it, give it to your friend, or your friend gives you theirs, and you can enter and connect. This also has the ability to find a random opponent, which is nice. And TCG Arena has a little help section here about how to do the basics. It also has some shortcuts for the people who really like those. The one thing you have to remember about TCGA is that they don't remember for you to get your champion unit out at the beginning of the game. So you have to always find that one yourself by looking through your deck. And that's kind of it. Um, so after that, you can just exit. Um, After that, probably the biggest question everyone has, and Unfortunately, currently the biggest downside to Riftbound is the accessibility physically. Riftbound set 1 at least has a huge lack of stock. They're underprinted a lot, which means cart prices are going crazy, and it's really hard to find any product. There are two websites, two main websites you should probably be looking for. If you're in Europe, Cart Market is your best friend. Um, if you're in America, or like North, South America, Canada, TCG Player is probably a place for you. I think China has WeChat, but I've never used it, nor have I ever been to China, so I don't really know how to use that. Um, but if you're looking for something more local, looking to start your collection, these are the 3 starter decks I've talked about. These are the 3 that are basically ready to play out of the box. They currently go for about 25 euros, depending on where you're looking. And each deck basically is ready to play and has an extra booster in there that you can open and upgrade your deck with. There's also this website. This will help you find stores near you that have Riftbound or organized Riftbound events. I will send a link to the PowerPoint when I am done with everything I have to say. So you can always take a look yourself. You don't have to note this down right now real quick. You'll always have access to this. Then, the frequently asked questions. There are a couple cards that have the keyword hidden, or how hiding a card works. It's a good question. Um, some cards have um, some cards like Fight or Flight have hidden. It says hide now for a rainbow, to react with later for 0. What this means is you can recycle any rune, doesn't matter what color, to hide it, and then later you don't have to pay anything. And instead of action, this becomes a reaction, which means you can play it almost at any time. Now, where can you hide? What does hiding do? So, you can only hide at battlefields you have control over. So if you have a unit at a battlefield and there's nothing going on, there's nothing happening on the chain, there are no abilities that are happening, there are no spells being cast, this is the moment that you can hide on your turn only. You recycle the rune, you put the card face down at that battlefield, and then it's hidden. Great. You cannot use it for that turn. The hidden card is when you hide it, you are unable to use it that turn, but every turn after, you can play it for free as a reaction. Another caveat uh, is that you can only, once you've hidden a card, you can only target units at that battlefield. So once a card has been hidden at a battlefield, it can also only affect that battlefield. Which means that if you hide a card somewhere and then something happens on the other battlefield, straight out of luck, you can't use it anymore. Yeah, hidden is kind of like a trap card in stupid Yu-Gi-Oh language. No, I'm kidding. It is kind of like a trap card. So you cannot use it the turn that you've hidden it. Um, but after that, it is free use whenever. You just can't use it on other battlefields. I think there was something else I wanted to say. Right. If you manage to lose control of the battlefield that you've hidden a card at, your hidden card gets discarded. It goes to the trash. You no longer have it because you don't have the battlefield anymore. I like to think of it as like putting a trap, like if you're thinking of like a military campaign, you're placing a trap for people that attack you. However, you have to be there to hide that trap, to create this trap, like a pitfall or something. So you have to be there before you can make that trap. Um, and then once you're gone, the trap is useless, basically. That's kind of how I see it. It helps for me. Maybe it helps for you. Maybe it doesn't. Who knows? Then we also have the keyword deflect. Um, some cards will have deflect on them. As you can see, Piltover Archive is slowing things down tremendously already. Yeah, I'm gonna close Piltover Archive for now. I will just go like this. Um, so I can maybe just look it up. There's this card, Deadbloom Predator. It has the keyword deflect. This means whenever an opponent wants to target it, I did not mean to click on that. Whenever someone wants to target this, they have to recycle a rune of any color to do so. It does work a little odd. If you want to cast a spell to target it, you have to pay the deflect cost while casting it. It basically becomes an additional cost to casting it. If it's an ability that wants to target it, the ability triggers, it goes on the chain, it targets this, you then get the option of paying the deflect cost, and if you don't, the ability gets countered. So it does nothing, it goes away. For spells, you can't even play them without paying for the deflect cost. That's how that one works. There's also keyword temporary. I think the best card for it is this one. You give units out of battlefield or a gear temporary. Temporary means kill at the start of its controller beginning phase before scoring. This means that cards with temporary will die before you get a point from holding. There's a little special thing with temporary, the reason why I put it on the frequently asked questions list. Um, if an ability doesn't target a deflect unit, do you still need to pay up? No, if it doesn't target it, you don't have to pay it. It's only if you actively target it. So a board wipe would work just fine. Yes, so fading memory. You give a unit or a gear temporary. Temporary means at the beginning phase they have to die. However, there are cards like Sonya's Hourglass or the Set Legend that can save a unit from dying. This works against temporary, sort of. What happens is that instead of the Zonias or Set will prevent the dying, and temporary only triggers at the controller's beginning phase. So you save your unit, but it will still have the temporary keyword, which means that at your next turn, your next beginning phase, then it will try to die. Unless your unit actually dies and you bring it back, temporary will kind of stay on your unit. Or if you manage to get your unit off the board and bring it back, then it's also gone. But as long as your unit manages to stay on the board by preventing its death, temporary will stick and will try to kill your unit every time the beginning phase happens. Your beginning phase. Then we have Falling Star and Ecathian Rain. These are interesting cards that I think we will like the no. So we have Falling Star and Ecathian Rain. As you can see, they're here as well. The important part of these cards are that they have the text, do this an amount of times. Ecathian Rain has do this 6 times, Falling Star has do this twice. These are what we call reflexive triggers. The reason they're on the list is because when you cast Falling Star, you don't have to choose the targets yet. It says deal 3 damage to a unit. You don't have to choose what units quite yet. The way it works is you play Falling Star, your opponent gets to decide, do I want to do anything against that? And if that answer is no, then Falling Star resolves, which means then 2 triggers, each dealing 3 damage, will get put on the chain, and this is when you have to declare targets, and you have to declare both of them at the same time. So you can deal 3 damage to up to 2 units, or you can choose the same unit to deal 6 damage to it in instances of 3. So first 3, then 3 to the same unit. You have to pay deflect for each time you target a unit if they have deflect. So you could pay deflect up to 2 times if you target the same unit with deflect. But one of the interesting ways, and the reason it confuses people a lot, is because if you have one unit, for example, that has 5 might, your opponent tries to cast Falling Star on it, they first put it on the chain. If you do nothing, they can then choose your unit twice, your unit will die. But if this is your only unit and you manage, and your opponent casts Falling Star and you manage to then take the unit away, there is a spell called Retreat, for example, which brings your unit back to your hand. Then you can say, yeah, you can resolve Falling Star, and then Falling Star will try to resolve. 2 damage triggers will go on the stack, and they need to have targets. And if you don't have any units, but your opponent still has units, this forces your opponent to target their own units. However, as I said, you can put 2 targets on the same unit. If your opponent has 2 units that are both like 2 might, this does not mean they have to target both of their units. They can target the same one twice with the same, so with both damage triggers, even if one would kill it. It doesn't matter. They can be the same target, even if one instance of damage is enough. It just matters that they have that they have targets. Which is also a thing that trips people up. A lot of people think it's, okay, I deal 3 damage here. Cool. And then they will declare their second target once that one has resolved. That's not how it works. You have to choose your targets as soon as you get the option for both of them. Or in the case of Ecathian Rain, all 6. Your opponent does get a chance to react between every trigger, if they have reactions, of course. So every trigger, they get to be like, sure, you can do the 2 damage. Sure, you can do the 2 damage. Sure, you can do the 2. Now, on the third one, I want to respond. They have the option for each and every one of them. Then, spells that force movement. There are spells like Charm. This just says, move an enemy unit. If you've been paying attention, you know that you cannot move units from battlefield to battlefield. What you have to remember is this is a card game. Card games have rules. These rules will always get broken by the cards themselves. Charm is one of those examples. You can move an enemy unit from their base to your battlefield, from their battlefield to their base, or from battlefield to battlefield. Charm does not care about the restrictions of movement. Other cards that can move a unit also don't. There's another card that is favorable for you, which is Ride the Wind. This card says move a friendly unit and ready it. You are absolutely allowed to move your unit from one battlefield to the other with this one, even if they do not have ganking. Spells that move units get around the regular movement that units can normally do. Then there's healing. A lot of card games have that they immediately will heal, or that damage sticks forever. Riftbound has that damage will stick until the end of a combat showdown. Again, if you've been paying attention, you know that that is only when enemy units meet, when two opposing units meet. This is not when you gain control of a battlefield or your opponent gains control of a battlefield. So at the end of a combat showdown or at the end of turn. Those are the only times units heal. Apart from that, they will keep the damage that has been dealt to them. Then you have action and reaction. I've explained this before, but this is mostly in regards to showdowns. Because as I've said, you can use showdowns during your opponent's turn. You can use actions during showdowns, even during your opponent's turn. But what you need to remember is that they still need the chain to be empty. Which means that even though it is a showdown, you cannot put an action on top of something else. You still have to wait for the chain to be empty, but you can still do it in the showdown. Reactions, like I said, you can do that during any time. You can place it as a reaction to anything. Then we also have the unconventional combat scenarios. These are scenarios where you will move in with a unit, you will stun the enemy unit, but suddenly the enemy unit becomes bigger than yours through spells that make it bigger or something like that, and your unit can't kill the enemy unit. Stunning means the enemy unit cannot deal damage back. What happens? Because your unit can't kill it, but it also doesn't kill your unit. In cases like this, where there's no determined outcome of a fight, whoever is attacking will get recalled back to base. They will get bounced off the battlefield, and kind of nothing will change. They will still be exhausted, so they can't just move and try again. It just kind of becomes a tie and then it bounces off. There are also moments where you could have a tie where they both kill each other. In those scenarios, the battlefield does become free. No one gets a point because there is no unit that survives there. And here's a fun one, at least I think so. A lot of card games, I think almost all of them, have either, if you have no more cards in your deck, you lose, or if you try to draw from an empty deck, you lose the game. Or if you don't have a deck anymore, if you have an empty deck, every card you draw after deals damage to you. Riftbound, little different. In Riftbound, if you manage to deck out and you do anything that interacts with your deck, what happens then is that instead you will shuffle your graveyard, your trash, you put it as your library, you give an opponent a point, and then you continue what you were trying to do. So if you were trying to draw a card, you draw a card. If you're trying to look at the top 3 cards of your deck, you start looking at the top 3 cards of your deck. But you give your opponent a point, and anything that is not conquering can be the 8th point for your opponent, for anyone. There are also other cards that will gain you an extra point. That can also be your 8th point. The winning point clause, the special winning point clause, is really only for conquering, for taking over a battlefield. All right. I have come to the end of my presentation. Apart from one thing, and that's an event with WIM Plus, which stands for Women in Magic. They are a group started by three very lovely people. One has since left them to pursue her own things. But currently there's still Lisa and Artemiana. They have this beautiful community that they built, which is for anyone that's not a cis man. And they want to bring representation to the TCG spaces. And I want to help them a little bit. I've asked for their permission. And in collaboration with them, we want to do a little pre-Rift Win Plus event. What this means, I would like um, every member of Win Plus, or everyone who wants to be a member of Win Plus, through their Instagram that I've posted here. That's our Instagram tag. Um, Everyone who wants to participate in this that is in the Netherlands or will be in the Netherlands, to please go to this locator, the Riftbound UVS games, and put in these search and these filters for the search. Because around this time is when set 2 Spirit Forged will come out, and we want to have a sort of win plus release event, pre-release event. Um, so in Riftbound, pre-release are called pre-Rift. These are the dates where those will usually be held. Look for the Netherlands, or wherever you're closest to. I would like you to DM me. My name is Violet on all the servers I'm in. DM me the city that's closest to you, um, a city you wouldn't mind traveling to, and the city that you are maximum willing to travel to. And we will see if we can have a little gathering of everyone who wants to learn Riftbound. Um, I'll make a little announcement in the server as well. I hope this was helpful to everyone who wants to learn Riftbound. I will post a link to the PowerPoint in the chat so everyone can go over this themselves whenever they want to. And are there any more questions for me? Preferably about Riftbound, but they can be about anything. The reason I look so cute is mostly because I have really great friends that inspire me by the way they look and the way they act, which has a lot of influence on how I tend to dress myself and how I try to portray myself. So that's the answer to that. Kani, if you wanted the Yone card, The only gamble you would have to make is how long does it take Dutch Post to make it to the UK? Because obviously I'm gonna get it and send it to you. You know this. Shut up. Okay. All right. If these were if there are no more questions, then I will wrap up this lovely stream. Thank you everyone who made it. I appreciate every single person that watched, even if you hadn't chatted. Um, yes, for Yone as a legend, well, okay, let's go to Piltover Archive again. If it doesn't lag out, I feel like it's lagging out. Never mind. Card gallery, Riftbound. Let's do this. So currently, if I wanted to filter, it doesn't work the way I wanted to. But let's go to Yone. As you can see, Yone is card type unit champion. So currently, Yone is only a champion. Um, we all got kind of bamboozled. Yone is only a champion in Spirit Forged, even though he's on the box. Um, However, we have Rumble, Lucian, Draven, Rek'Sai, Ornn, Jax, Irelia, Azir, Ezreal, Renata, Sivir, and Fiora as our legends. Um, which are still very cool legends. But so for now, Yone is only a champion. As soon as this legend comes out, we kind of already have a hint that it will at least be body. So Yone will at least be body plus something. I'm going to assume calm or chaos because those are the colors that domains that Yasuo was, and they have to have at least something similar. And a lot of Ionians have gotten the calm chaos combination because it's a lot about movement, uh, being a little special, a little more special than the rest. Um, so yeah, what a Yone deck would consist of, I have no idea again. I have no idea yet. Um, but it seems like he likes equipments apparently, and when he conquers the open battlefield, deal damage equal to my might to an enemy unit in a base. So this is kind of like his Q3 when he takes control of a spot and then the Q3 goes over, or like his E maybe, like I have controlled this battlefield, now I will use my E, go over, kill your thing, and then go back to safety. Safety. He will be at a battlefield, but uh, so yeah, it's gonna be something like that. All right. Um. So again, thank you everyone for being here. I love you all very much, and I will say good night. Bye bye.